What is up, everybody? Welcome back here to the TDR show. I got my boy Jay back. He ditched me last week, so I did the big board podcast with you guys. But we're happy for our guy. He got a big promotion at work, so we're excited for him. But he can't leave us this week. We are doing a Dynasty ranking show. We actually just dropped a giant Dynasty rankings update and Devy rankings. We have all of that combined. I think we rank 800 players, and we just dropped another kind of huge one in November about 15 days ago. So I said, you know what? Let's kind of go through kind of what we're seeing here for some particular players. So we got two per position, and we're going to go over dynasty trades out there, the movement, kind of what we're doing out there, just to kind of give you guys some real life advice. I'm like, hey, who are some guys right now in dynasty maybe you want to trade, maybe as the playoffs are coming that you want to kind of jump on there. But also we're going to, give some other takes. Not going to just be these guys. We'll probably inherently just talk about some other guys there. So we're going to be looking here at new dynasty rankings, what is those movement are, all those dynasty trades out there. So stick with us here on the show. All right, let's get into it. No fluff today, Jay. We're going straight in, talking some dynasty risers. We're going to start with the quarterback position, and it's been some up and down in terms of quarterbacks out there. I mean, Josh Allen, obviously, he went off today. We're recording this on November 16th. I think he had 6 touchdowns total. So he's really kind of supplanted himself. He's QB1. Lamar has been good this year. I will say, like, Jayden has struggled. But the one guy out here that has done pretty damn well for himself this season is Drake Maye. He's one of the bigger dynasty risers. If you're watching on YouTube, you see the keep trade cut out here of his value in September all the way through November. I mean, he rose about almost 3,000 keep trade cut value. And Jay knows all more about that, but it's a shit ton. That's my analysis there. But when you're looking overall, like, how did he rise? For us, he's our consensus QB4, but on keep trade cut, he's QB2. So he's right behind Josh Allen. Now, I think that may be a little lofty with Lamar sitting there and some of these other guys in that range. Maybe Jayden Daniels, possibly. I think it depends on what you think of Jayden this year. But he has been a big riser, right, when we're talking about that. And you saw him up until he played, this last week against the Jets. He was pretty damn good. I mean, he had 5-game streak of multiple touchdown passes up until then. When you're looking at that, he did not have an interception either. He's a QB1 for sure. This is pretty high. I think QB4 is his ceiling to me. QB2, I think, is a little high for me in terms of his value right now. But where are you at, Jay, with Drake Maye? And we've talked about Maye as being maybe that riser that we would see preseason, and he's definitely hit that.
Yeah, I think this quarterback has really proven a lot in his second year. And I think coming into the season, we were a little bit concerned about the weapons that he had in this offense from a pass catching perspective. Just looking at maybe some of the other younger guys, comparing him to those guys and kind of seeing what they had for weapons, you might not have put Drake Maye in the best possible situation there. But really, he's gone out and proven everything you need to see. This quarterback is on the rise. He's getting the value now. From a dynasty perspective. You can see that at keep trade cut. You can see that at fantasy calc. You can see it all on all the calculators. If you're going out and trying to trade for him, it's really, really tough. And he's putting up fantasy points too. So, like, not only do you think about this from a dynasty perspective, like how you value these guys over time, you're also thinking about how many points they're getting right now. And he's getting you pretty decent points right now. I think expected points, he's QB9. Points per game, actual QB5, so outperforming what you'd kind of expect there. Total expected points added for all of the NFL. He's QB1 there. He's QB4 in QBR. He's QB1 in completion percentage above expectation. These are great numbers out of a second year guy. This is the kind of rise that you want to see, and it's got the makings of sort of that. This guy could maybe be that QB1 at some point down the line. So dramatic rise, I think it's probably warranted, but now we're getting to the point where you're bouncing up against sort of the top end of what you can get for him. So if you're out on the trade market or you're rebuilding or something like that, you can really collect a lot of assets here, but you got to weigh that with the fact that this guy might end up being at some point, especially with the Josh Allens, the Patrick Mahomes, the Lamar Jacksons, who still are producing a ton of points, don't get me wrong, but from an age perspective, they're kind of getting up there. This guy could be in a great position to kind of take over that QB1 mantle at some point. I don't want to get like too lofty, too out there in terms of like this guy is everything, and it doesn't mean that next year he doesn't come and have like an off year as well. That definitely could happen before. We've seen it happen lots of times. But right now, the trajectory, what we're seeing, this is he's putting up really great numbers from a fantasy perspective, and then just looking at him match up against some of the best in the NFL, and he's doing that as well.
He is doing it. I mean, and you brought up the weapons. I think that's a good point too. You're looking at, Stephon Diggs. I think one thing that we thought, or maybe just in general, people thought, I didn't know if Stephon Diggs was going to be healthy, right? I think that was one of those things like, hey, coming off what he came off of last year, would he be able to come out there? And he's looked pretty good this year, 659 yards, the 3 touchdowns, and the 72 targets there. Kayshon Boutte has been he bounced back, good for him after all that stuff. 431 yards, 5 touchdowns. Hunter Henry's been solid. Demario Douglas has had his role. Matt Collins has had his role too. They've gotten the running backs involved. And I will say this, the guy that we're going to talk about a little later, TreVeyon Henderson is stepping up now, right? And so from a receiving standpoint, maybe that's going to help him out too. There are some deals for Drake Maye that I wanted to get into. And this is what you're talking about in terms of risk reward, right? If you have Drake Maye, I don't advocate selling, right? You don't advocate selling a top 5 prospect, especially when he's under 25 years old. But here are some deals that have happened. And Fantasy Calc is where I get all my deals out there for Dynasty. It's a very good barometer for like what leagues you're going. And before you say, what kind of deals to happen in that league? Like, I get it. I know that not all leagues are equal. But here are 3 kind of ones that stood out to me. Drake Maye for Bo Nix and Tet McMillan. And this is all super flex leagues here, 12 team, tight end premium. That's kind of how the general, settings are. The other one was Drake Maye for Jayden Daniels in a first, 26 first. And then Drake Maye in a third for Lamar Jackson. So these deals here, just breaking them down, for one, I don't want anything to do with Bo Nix. We're going to talk about Bo Nix next. I'm not tearing down from Drake to Bo, even to add Tet. I'm just not there yet there. I think the most fair trade in this group is the middle one, Drake Maye for Jayden Daniels in a first. If you are rebuilding, I love this deal, right? You get Jayden Daniels, who still can be a top 5 dynasty asset, especially at quarterback, and you get that first back. And then if you're contending, you're like, hell, I'm going to go get Drake Maye. I just lost Jayden Daniels. I'm going to bet on his upside and ceiling. So I think that's a great deal there for both sides. Of the other 2, I still lean Drake Maye, even the Lamar Jackson one, because I think they're in the same tier. I don't want to really give up a third to go get Lamar. I'd rather just take Drake Maye, excuse me.
Yeah, same for me. I actually agree with you on those. Although, putting my guy Tetairoa McMillan in there makes it a little bit harder because I would like to see anybody other than that wide receiver in there. But yeah, Drake Maye, I'd rather have him over Bo Nix and Tetairoa. I do agree with you that the contender rebuilder process. If you were looking at this to start the season, Jayden Daniels was QB2, sometimes QB1. So if you were to make that trade or tear down to Drake Maye, you're feeling really, really good about that if you did that this offseason. And now you kind of go the other way. So you got to pay it at a first to get into Drake Maye. So it definitely feels like one of those contender rebuilder type of things. I do personally, I prefer Drake Maye, the quarterback, over Jayden Daniels. And I did that last offseason as well. So that would be, if you're looking out forward, I'd rather have Drake Maye, but that first in there makes it much more fair.
Yeah.
And then again, Lamar Jackson, he can win you fantasy leagues. He can put up 30 points per game in any given game, especially when you're getting into the playoffs and things are really cooking. But if you're looking at it from a dynasty perspective, who's going to be that? Who's going to hold that value? Who's going to be the QB1 5 years from now or 3 years from now? Maybe it's Drake Maye, and you also get the third. So that one I take Drake Maye as well.
Yeah, the Lamar one's tough. That offense is a mess right now. I just traded for Lamar in a league. And I gave up Nix in a second for Lamar. And some people hated it in the chat. But I gave it up because I'm out on Bo Nix. And so I don't mind going after Lamar. I do believe that offense is a mess there. But I don't necessarily think trading Drake to get Lamar is going to win you that league, right? I think maybe the consistency of Drake week in, week out, top 5 performances will help you with that Lamar kind of volatility a little bit. And I think there can be volatility there. So that's Drake. He's one of our risers there. As far as a faller, and this might be controversial for some, but I put Bo Nix on here. So for me, when you're looking at him, where he started this last dynasty, I mean, he was up to like, I want to say he was up to like QB7. That might be crazy, but I'm pretty sure he got pretty high up there. As of right now, on our rankings here at TDR, he's QB14. At Keep Trade Cut, he's QB12, but he has dropped in value, right? So he's dropped around probably about 1,000 KTC points and value in that range. And by no means is Keep Trade Cut the Bible of everything, but it's just a good to show you kind of how the market has shifted a little bit on him. Overall, he's just been volatile, right? Like when you're looking at him, I mean, he's basically been a QB1 4 times this year, but he has 5 games that are QB19 or lower. But his teams are winning. Like his teams are winning, and he just beat the Chiefs again. He's 9-2. Like, so from just like hey, his team is winning. Yes, 100%. But from a fantasy perspective, like, to me, what I always thought of Bo Nix as is like QB 15 range, like a very solid QB2. So he has definitely dropped that value if he's your QB1. If you were drafting him as your QB1 in that range, sure. If you draft him a couple years ago, I still think you're fine. I think that value holds and you're basically is what he is. But he definitely needs to improve, like from a passing standpoint. He's been very inconsistent this year. And I think that rushing standpoint's the big one. He only has a few, like 3 rushing touchdowns, hasn't really shown that upside, has a little bit. I mean, he still does that when he gets those QB1 weeks is when he does really well. But I don't know. I like Bo Nix. I think his value has dipped a little bit. I'm kind of out on him as being that QB1 type. I've always been out on him on that range. But if he's a solid QB2 on your roster, I understand why you roster him. But if I can tier up, I'm going to try to do that.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And you'll see that in the rankings in our rankings as well. But I did check. He got up to QB6 from a value perspective. So one higher than you were thinking in late August, early September, all the way up to QB6 for Bo Nix. And you know what? To be fair, he had a really good season last year from a points per game perspective. So you have to weigh that with going into the season and him sort of being on the younger side of the QBs. The hype gets a little bit in there. Just like you, I've kind of been sort of out on him even coming in as a prospect, but like they're, relative to maybe some other guys, maybe I prefer him, but it's sort of like him being that QB1 or attaining that QB1 level. That's really not where I've seen him. More of like the QB2 type guy. This season, QB18 on expected points per game so far, and QB16 on actual points per game. So, and right now he's from a value perspective at QB12. So really, points per game wise, underperforming kind of the value you have from him if you were out there on the trade market. That's kind of that sign, like it could be coming down still even further from where we are now. QB18 on total EPA, QB18 on QBR. That's something that ESPN has, and his completion percentage is above expected, is below 0. So again, another situation where for Bo Nix, his value seems to be a little bit higher than his points per game is kind of shaking out. And to me, that feels like it'll trend further down from where we are. And the trajectory is down as well. So, definitely somebody that's been falling in my ranks. I think he was always just a little bit lower in our ranks than what you saw out there from Keep Trade Cut and Fantasy Calc. But I feel like it's coming down and maybe even coming down a little bit further than we were at the start of the season.
Oh, I was a hater. I got all the hate talk out there, and I still am. I still like, I have like a personal, I don't even want to say personal vendetta because it sounds like such a weirdo. But like I hate Geno Smith. Me and Geno Smith. I've always been like Geno's overrated. We have like a running joke in the Discord. I could always put ass down like anytime he makes a mistake. But that's how I feel about Bo too. I feel like he's always been overrated, especially in dynasty value. QB6 is insane, Jay Stein. Like that's a little bit much for me, especially with what you're trying to do as a quarterback. I mean, basically you're saying Bo Nix is Drake Maye. Like you're hoping that he becomes like that value in that range, and he's just not. And I think that they're protecting a little bit. His schedule has been a little easier this year. If you can move him for guys, so I put up some deals that I think that you would definitely move Bo Nix for. So here are the 3 that I had out there. Bo Nix in a second for Lamar Jackson, a 2027 second. That happened. That was in my league. I did that today, this morning. Didn't help me today, damn it, but I hope it helps me down the long run because I am a contender. But, I got off the Bo Nix train. I gave up my second for Lamar. I would do that every time, no matter if I was rebuilding or not. I think getting a guy like Lamar as a top 5 asset or top 3 asset in QB position is what you do. Bo Nix went for 2 firsts, 226 first as well. And then Bo Nix for Jared Goff in a second. I think that one is the closest one of these guys. But what is your takeaway from these deals and maybe his trade market?
Yeah, and I'll reiterate really quick that I think the point that you made about him winning games and being a quarterback, I think this you marry the differences between what makes a player look good and win games and his fan base and people will see him win and come out clutch or whatever. And that being maybe different than how we look at these things from a fantasy perspective and those points per game that you can get consistently or in the future from those players. I think Bo Nix might be one of those situations where those two aren't marrying up for us, but that's just for us. I'm going to go Lamar Jackson, of course, because I do agree with this, but Lamar Jackson has that potential to, hit that 26, that 30 points per game in any given week and win you a league there. So that player is something special. You don't get it every week, or you at least lately you haven't felt like you get it every week. But there's been years where he just puts up so many points that it's ridiculous. I'm taking the 2 firsts as well, so that one feels pretty easy for me. You can argue mid, late, early, however you want to think about this. You can argue, man, there's not a lot of great quarterbacks, and it doesn't feel like the next class there's going to be a lot of great quarterbacks coming out. So am I giving away a quarterback and not having the chance to get another quarterback? Yes, I understand that, but I think there's just too much value in grabbing the 2 firsts. And then this Bo Nix for Jared Goff one, I think this one's really, really close, but I got to lean the Goff, so I get the extra second, and I get somebody that maybe puts up pretty similar points per game. That Lions offense has looked pretty good for a few years now. I know Ben Johnson's there in Chicago, but Goff still seems to be doing okay. And you get the extra second on top of that to help your team.
Yeah. And I think that if you have Bo Nix, I don't think it's immediate sell right away, right? If he is your QB2 and you're solid there as a QB1, I don't think you have to sell there. But if I can collect some assets and get him back, if you can get Goff in a second, and then for Bo, and you have Goff as your QB2 plus an asset, or maybe you go get a Dak, right? Get someone like that, maybe a little bit better draft capital because he's older. There are definitely kind of ways that you can maneuver yourself just to kind of collect more assets. Now, if he's your QB1, that's where I start maybe trying to look for like a tier up type thing, like what I did with Lamar. Obviously, maybe that won't work. I mean, we have a Bo Nix believer in my league, and he sent me that deal. I did not send him that deal. So if that's the case, then you just get lucky sometimes in terms of what someone values someone as there. As far as any other quarterbacks, we're obviously not going to dive deep into these guys, but the guys that maybe are trending a little bit down. CJ Stroud, for sure, I think is trending a little bit down. JJ McCarthy, we won't get into that. Me and Jay will talk about him another time since we love JJ. But JJ's been having a rough few games here and kind of having a rough season too. Michael Penix Jr., a lot of people were high on Michael Penix Jr. I don't think we were, but he's kind of trending down as well and, kind of going through it. As far as maybe trending a little bit up, I'll give you a couple. Caleb's looked good this year. Solid. The type of guy where he's going to solidify his dynasty value. And after that, I got our boy Mac Jones. Mac Jones looks like he might be playing his way into another team, just a la Sam Darnold, and really kind of elevating himself, I think, a little bit based on what he's doing in San Francisco. He does have another year on his deal, though. So I keep seeing people say, "Oh, someone go out there for agency." He signed a 2-year deal. So the Niners were smart when they did that. So they're gonna have to sort of go trade for him there. Any thoughts on those quarterbacks or anything else on the quarterback position?
Yeah, just a couple other ones. I mean, Jackson Dart was pretty a big rise, especially from a value perspective, going out there and try and trade for him. I think he went up quite a bit. I think he's up to about QB9 now, which is, he wasn't even getting the start at the start of the season. People were uncertain about him as a prospect as well. I think that was a big riser for our process. Daniel Jones was really surprising for that rise.
Yeah.
He's not rising that much in our work, but he's putting up a ton of points. So that's the point. And Matthew Stafford is having another good season. Just seems to be like I think he's almost 38 years old. Seems to be not aging and keep throwing up big years. From a faller's perspective, I think Kyler Murray, the drop off has been pretty fast and hard. JJ McCarthy is another big one that's been real pretty hard as well to see on the quarterback space.
Yeah. All right. Let's not get depressed when we're talking about JJ McCarthy. Let's go over to our riser here. We got a baby, you and me, Jay. And we had some trolls a couple weeks ago with TreVeyon Henderson. How do you like them apples now? Because TreVeyon Henderson is rising up, sir. When you're looking at what he's been able to do after they got Ramondre out of there, after we said, hey, you give the ball to your best player, your best running back. Look at what's happened with our boy TreVeyon. So when really the last 4 games is kind of where we've seen that a little bit. Ramondre is in there a little bit there. But over the course of the last 3 games, he's basically been a running back 1. Running back 15 overall in PPR 3 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago against Tampa Bay, he was number 4. New York Jets, number 3 overall running back in PPR. We love that. Now, there is always that narrative that Ramondre is out there, and he's going to come back, and I do understand that. But I'd rather him perform well when Ramondre is out than the opposite. Like, this is what we want to see from him, right? Like, this is where he's done this, and you can see where his value's risen up, basically what it was preseason, almost close to where he's at. He's running back 14 for us. He's actually at running back 9 on Keep Trade Cut. So even though we like him so much, we are also very aware of what those limitations possibly could be if Ramondre comes back. And I'm the high guy. I have him at 12. You and Christian have him at 16 because you're haters. But he is there finally. So I'm happy with this. What's our takeaway with TreVeyon?
Well, just to be fair to me and Christian along the way here, we did these rankings. When we did these rankings, it was before he had these 2 like sort of breakout type games, these huge games. I think the last 2 weeks have proven a lot for TreVeyon Henderson for what he can be from a fantasy perspective. I mean, 33 attempts, 209 yards, 4 rush TDs, 6 receptions, 34 yards, and a receiving TD in those last 2 games. That's amazing. That's really great fantasy production that you're getting from a running back that's young, that you're going to feel confident on going into the future as well. I mean, right now, Ramondre Stevenson might be sort of in the way if he comes back and he's healthy and he gets some stuff. But looking at this for 3 years out, you got to feel like TreVeyon Henderson's the guy there going forward. So I get the rise. I know we were high on him and he was maybe below us, and now he's maybe above where we are. But I think, honestly, I got to move him up a little bit just seeing what he did the last 2 weeks, given that I baked in some uncertainty about, how this year was going to play out with Ramondre Stevenson and the Patriots. And it just felt like, for whatever reason, he couldn't get on the field. And now that he's on the field and he's doing really well, and he's showing that he can block, and he's showing that he can catch passes, and he's performing really well. You can kind of see, you can envision where he can get to. Now, is he in the RB1 category yet?
I don't think so.
Is he with Bijan? Is he with Gibbs? Jonathan Taylor this year? Devin Achane? I don't think he's there yet. That's not where I am quite with him on that one. So I'm still in a lower 2, maybe 1 tier, 2 tiers below that. But what I like, what I've seen so far, what I thought of him as a prospect, I think it's all kind of marrying, and you got to think the momentum's up from here.
Yeah, no, I have him at 12, which I think is fair. I think 12, maybe fringe running back 1 value, because I really still have that banked in, like, Ramondre fear of my life, because I do think that Vrabel's an asshole, and I think Vrabel's just going to use Ramondre different ways and is going to eat into that. But again, I love the fact that, like, that he did something when Ramondre wasn't there, and he became a top 5 running back. That's what you want, right? Like that's exactly what we're looking for. And I did piss off some people. Like, I tweeted out, like I said before his last game, I said, hey, Henderson's rookie season really reminds of Jahmyr Gibbs' rookie season, a la kind of the timeshare, a la like the slow start, a la the offensive coordinator's offense wasn't really giving him the usage that I thought he should get. I think people forget that about Gibbs. I mean, I was tweeting out stuff about Gibbs just like I did for Henderson. And now you're seeing that. Now, do I think he's a Gibbs level prospect? Damn it. Yeah, pretty close. Okay. So I hate to break it to you guys out there, because I see some of that. Like, he's nowhere close to Gibbs. You know what? As a college prospect, they're pretty damn close, Jay. Like, it's not like as crazy as people think. Like, Gibbs had those explosive plays. He went to Alabama. We saw that. TreVeyon was a damn good running back in college football. Like, and he was explosive too. So trying to like nitpick here and say he's not, I think they're very close in terms of prospects, as people will say. As far as some deals right now, he's basically worth a 26 first, right? And if it's a late first, based on the running backs, the rankings, we've kind of gone through them. We redid our Devy ones too. After Jeremiah Love, if you don't have the 101, like based on a running back, I don't mind taking a shot on Henderson if that's what your idea is. TreVeyon Henderson for Brian Thomas Jr. That happened in a league as well. BTJ's obviously had a really bad year this year. And whatever that is, I guess we'll find out at some point. And then TreVeyon Henderson for Garrett Wilson straight up. Where are you at with his market right now? Do you think that's fair market value for him right now?
Well, here, let me ask you a question. Would you rather have Henderson or Jeremiah Love? Would you rather have Henderson or Makai Lemon? Would you rather have Henderson or Carnell Tate? Would you rather have Henderson or Jordan Tyson? Who are you taking?
I think the only I would rather have Henderson. I'd rather have Jeremiah Love probably over Henderson. The other three come down to roster construction, but in a vacuum, if you're going to ask me what wide receiver would I pick, I would say I'd rather have Makai than Henderson, but that's it. I would rather have Henderson over Tyson. I would rather have him over Tate.
I think I feel the same way. It's close for Tate for me, but
I wonder why. I wonder why it's close for Tate for you. No bias in there, no homerism.
Hey, the other side is a Buckeye too, so I don't know.
Fair.
Yeah, so like I think the trajectory is up. If it's just like a no-name 2026 first, preferably the late first, I'd probably take in Henderson. Gosh, the fall off for Brian Thomas Jr. when we talk about wide receivers, that's a huge thing. I can't believe if you were looking at this before the season, there's no way you don't take Brian Thomas Jr. after the season he had his first year. So that's I think says more about Brian Thomas Jr. than it does about TreVeyon Henderson on that deal. And I'm still a believer in Garrett Wilson. I'll take Garrett Wilson. A lot of Buckeyes in this slide here. Appreciate that.
Yeah, unfortunately. All right, let's get over to our follower from the running back position. There's a lot that we could have picked here in terms of this, just because it's just a position, right? Could have added my boy Jay's Caleb Johnson. We could have just went really negative here, but we're not. I'm out on him. I've been out on him. Could have said Trey Benson, a guy that I thought maybe could have jumped up, but just got injured this year too. And we could have talked about a lot of different guys, but I think Alvin Kamara for me, man. He's been bad. And when you look at his value and how he dropped, I mean, we still have him pretty high, maybe too high, running back 30-ish. He's running back 46 on keep trade cut. So that's probably one of our biggest discrepancies there. But when you're looking at overall on his season, Jay, he's been just bad, right? Like when you think it over that, and he's totaled, like when you see what he's been able to do, like he gets touches there. Devin Neal's eaten into his work a little bit recently, and that's not great. Taysom Hill had more rushing yards than him, I think, 2 weeks ago. I think Taysom Hill should not have more rushing yards than anybody in 2025. Like, that is not how that should work there. And you just have to look at it. It's tough. The one thing I will say is if you are betting on anything, in the playoffs, he plays the Jets and the Titans. There is a possibility where we're looking at Alvin Kamara, but you got to get to the playoffs and got to actually get there to use them. That's the problem there. But I mean, just look at these weekly finishes in PPR. We always thought that he was PPR safe, right? Like we always felt like that was going to be the case. And he probably had one of his best games against Carolina this last 2 weeks ago before the bye. 83 yards rushing. He had 3 targets, 3 catches, 32 yards, and he was running back 17. That was like his big week for him. Running back 14, 15 would have been his biggest weeks. But before that, he's put up a running back 62 number, 33, 37, 27, 29, 41. He's been unplayable in a lot of leagues out there. Huge fall off for him. He's basically going for thirds right now. What is your narrative on our boy Alvin Kamara?
I think we may have hit the age cliff on him. The hope was, maybe the last couple of years, into the 28th year, into the 29th year. He should score a lot of points. Just be careful. It might fall off. Then he goes into his 29th year. He'll score a lot of points. Just be careful. And now we're into this season, and there's situations going on. There's circumstances that are happening in New Orleans that it's maybe tough to overcome, maybe poor offensive line, maybe poor QB play that they're working through. So, I mean, there's a situational aspect to this as well. But when running backs get up over 30, like it's not even, it's just like a common like argument for it to just be, well, we're gotten to that age cliff. There's very few once you're above 30 that's keep producing at the same level they were. And the thing is that Alvin Kamara produced at a very, very high level, just like you said, from a PPR perspective. We've come to expect certain things from him, and he's certainly underperformed that this year. I mean, I think it's 10 points per game, basically what he's doing. So to the point, your point above, maybe not even playable in a lot of situations, which is definitely not how he was drafted this season, especially from a redraft perspective. And people made trades thinking, I'll plug this guy in, he'll get me the points. I don't need him for more than 1 year or something like that. And that certainly hasn't played out that way this season. So disappointing. You can't have it totally out of your realm of expectations of what could have happened. And then next year, you're definitely going to be on guard. Is it possible, like you said, those last 2 games where he puts up great numbers? Sure. But like, is the value mostly gone? You have these guys like Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, on the wide receiver side, a lot of guys that they produce still. They still produce, even though they're, well past the age cliff. But you just can't get any pickup in value for them from a dynasty perspective. And I'm afraid that's kind of where we are for Kamara. His value's kind of fallen down, and I'm not sure that you see the rise, even if he does put up points per game.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, when you look at the trade market, thirds, essentially what he's going for. Jaylen Wright in a third. Keon Coleman is an interesting one. I put that on there because that happened after Keon Coleman was basically healthy scratched from Buffalo. I don't know what the hell is going on there. This is more of a play for next year. I am not a Keon Coleman fan. I've never been a Keon Coleman fan. I think if you can get Kamara for a 30, do it. I think you do. I think you just look at it and say, hey, if you're a contender, maybe the end of the year playoff, if you could stash him and then you have him for those kind of 2 games, go try to win it. That's not a bad call. For Keon, as someone who's I never liked Keon, that's not a bad deal. Like to get Keon and you just take a shot on upside wide receiver possibly finds a new home, right? Like, and we were talking about it pre-show, and we more in the context of our boy Garrett Wilson, but like, who are some guys that we've seen actually pop off after they've, maybe didn't, fit or whatever the case may be. And it's hard to say Keon's going to fit somewhere else when he's playing with the best freaking quarterback in, I don't know, and maybe in the NFL history has all done if he can win some rings, and Josh Allen. But I mean, maybe he does, right? And it gives you kind of a reset on an asset that's dying off your roster. So Keon's not a bad target if you're at a mid-level, not contending team.
You're certainly buying cheap now.
Yeah.
The problem is you'd love to see, I mean, there's maybe a little couple nuggets from Keon, but like you just love to see some consistency, some consistency from a points per game and from target share and stuff like that. And it kind of feels like, Keon really hasn't been the guy there when he was drafted there, and he probably should be the guy. It just hasn't clicked quite yet. And maybe it comes later. Maybe it comes with a change of situation, maybe a lot of things, but this guy's young enough where you can take the swing if you're on that rebuilding squad to something that is definitely depreciating from Kamara to something that could be potentially appreciating in Keon, especially right now, which his prices have really come down quite a bit. So
yeah. Okay, enough with Keon Coleman. We talked about way too much Keon Coleman on Dynasty Show here. But other running backs real quick that, you probably, Jonathan Taylor is superhuman. Like he bounced back. Shout out Jonathan Taylor, probably a league winner. Devonta Chain has really kind of solidified himself there. Quinton Judkins has looked good, and a little bit of opportunities out there for Cleveland. Some guys that maybe have, Cameron Scotterbo. I mean, until he broke his leg and did all that stuff, he was rising up there. He's not one that I really want. If you can trade him, I would do it. But Javonte Williams from Dallas kind of resurgence too a little bit. As far as like maybe some followers, Caleb Johnson's a big one that stands out to me. Jayden Blue is a guy that was like many thought he could be something in this league, and he is just not out there for him. Tank Bigsby is falling off the map, Jay. When you look at him getting traded over there, people thought maybe he could be running back and one in Jacksonville at the beginning of the year. That did not happen. Anything else in the market there? It's so volatile. That's the thing with running backs.
Yeah. So Bucky Irving's been injured. I think he was up high, much higher to start the season. So that one is just kind of, we got to wait and for him to come back from injury to see where that is. The big faller for me this season was Kenneth Walker. From a value perspective, it just doesn't seem to be, people are really piling on him and selling and not interested in having him on their team anymore. So Ken Walker is, I think in the last 30 days, he's down 30 spots in KTC, which is a huge move. The surprising one for me, I think the change of scenery for Javonte Williams. That's somebody that I was almost out on, and he's come back. He's performing really well. So that's one that's pretty interesting. And just like the Jonathan Taylor was just an absolute like crazy year this year so far. So, I mean, he's certainly, I wonder when we look back on this season, how many championship rosters had Jonathan Taylor on him this year?
It's gonna be a lot. It's gonna be a lot, Jay. And you know what? You could have bought him for cheaper too. Preseason. Yeah. I mean, that was the one that if you hit and you trust your gut on Jonathan Taylor, you're laughing at the bank right now, because I do think if he stays healthy, he's going to win you leagues. I mean, I would say over 60%, probably. Like remember the CMC years and the Saquon years where you're just like, yeah, you got this guy when they're healthy, they're going to win you leagues. All right, let's go to wide receiver. A guy that's, he's high, man. We love him. Jaxon Smith-Njigba from the Seahawks. We have him at wide receiver 4. And when I was doing my rankings, I was like, man, maybe I'm a little too high in him. Like I was like going through it, like maybe I'm a little higher on him than most. I had him at, I think, 3 prior. Then I moved him to 4. But you know what? Q-Trade Cut has him as wide receiver 2. I mean, he's risen. Look at that value chart. You've been doing this for a while, like in terms of Q-Trade Cut. Is that one of the highest rises you've seen?
No, there's been tons of them. Okay. Jonathan Taylor was one player that rose to be one of the highest in the whole KTC database for a while. So I mean, there's been a couple. We get into these, like, we get hyper focused and the euphoria rises, and you get these players that get up to be number 1 in all of KTC. I get a little concerned when stuff like that happens, especially when it's not a QB. If it's a wide receiver or running back, those are worrying signs for me, just because of the positional value of quarterbacks from a superflex perspective. But this, like, there's not many of them. You might be able to count 10 or so, one a year for the last 10 years or something like that. There's not that many of them that do something like this. This has been a huge rise.
Well, in 8 games this year, JSN is a wide receiver 1, out of 10. So out of 10 games that they've played there, he has basically been that guy. The other games are, when you're looking at him, as wide receiver 13, just outside of that. And then wide receiver 25 is the one game where he didn't get up into that number. But he was super efficient. 4 catches, 5 targets, 79 yards in that game. Even this last game against the Rams, where they lost, he had 12 targets, 9 catches, 105 yards. He was really good. I mean, he's been obviously a top 3 guy, top 4 guy at the position. He performs extremely well in this, and we love him for this. Like, now, I think the question is, like, wide receiver 2 is really high, and maybe, like, with JSN, we've been really high on him. He's still only to 23, right? So, like, maybe we just go back and forth on this whole, like, all right, where is he at in terms of as a dynasty asset? Maybe we were so high on him early. Now we're getting a little nervous that he's so high now, because it's like solidifying our priors a little bit. Because if you look at his value, I think the most important thing you just go through is value. JSN for a 27 first and Jayden Daniels happened. So that obviously on a contender, right? JSN is going to be that, okay, I'm going to go try to win it. I lost Jayden Daniels. Here's my first in a very loaded 27 class. Like, and people are going to always say that, but that could turn into Jeremiah Smith possibly. Maybe, right? That could. Then JSN in a second for Jamar Chase. So now you're getting something added to JSN for Chase, a guy that's been wide receiver 1 pretty much his entire, with Justin Jefferson in that range. And then you got JSN for a first, a 27 first, 26 first, and Rome Odunze. So 2 firsts and Rome. This is elite pricing out here, Jay. So where are you at with his value? Are you nervous in terms of his value where it's at?
I'm nervous on the value. I really like him as a player. I think he can continue this because the fundamentals show that this guy is really, really, really clicking. So, first in target shares like high 30s. First in team share of air yards, looks really good. First in receiving yards, first in total EPA, first in yards per route run, first in targets per route run. This guy has put together a really phenomenal start to a season. And then not only that, points per game from a fantasy perspective, he's crushing it as well. So, I think he's up to 22 points per game for your team. The question, the point of emphasis that I'd make is his expected points per game is much lower. It has him in the wide receiver 12 range. I'm always been of a believer that the actual will eventually revert or get closer or trend to expected. So I wouldn't expect him to be putting up 22 points per game forever. If that's what you're buying and that's what you think, I think that'll revert at some point. But still, the fundamentals of what he's done so far this season justify a rise in value. The question is this too much? Looking at these deals, I most likely would prefer the other side of the trade versus the JSN side. Even though I really do think he's an incredible player, I do think the fundamentals line up for him to be good. I just think the value is kind of run too far. Maybe you take advantage of some of that, and maybe his value pulls back and you can get back into him at some point down the line. But grabbing Jayden Daniels in a first, and you mentioned that 2027 first, there's a lot of great wide receivers coming out in that class that would be really, really nice. And you get your quarterback on top of that. That just feels like that's a good way to dynasty playing for a future from that perspective. I'm always picking Ja'Marr Chase unless it's a very, very lopsided trade. I think Ja'Marr Chase is different, special. It's just we're playing with not Joe Burrow and for the Bengals. And then the two first, this is just the question is JSN worth that first, that second first, given that you don't know what those players will be? And you'd probably always pick the JSN side, but the fact that you're adding one first, two first, and then Rome, who was his own first, that's like almost 3 firsts worth of picks there. At some point, there's too much value on one side to ignore. And I understand we're trying to win championships, we're trying to win leagues, but when you're thinking about dynasty from a long-term perspective and accumulating that value, it's hard to take the side where you're not getting the most value. Yeah. In this case, it's the 2 first and Rome that you could probably get the most value, even though JSN fundamentally is looking really, really good. And I think that continues. I just don't see the value holding up as wide receiver, not only wide receiver too. I think he's number 4 overall in all of Keep Trade Cut. I think that's number 3 overall in all Keep Trade Cut. So right now he's higher in Keep Trade Cut than Drake Maye. He's higher than everybody but Josh Allen and Ja'Marr Chase. So that's when you get to that point where maybe it's just a little bit too far.
That I get it, I understand, but those 2 first could turn into JSN, right? And that's what you want. But at the end of the day, you want an elite asset, and that's a lot to give up. And I get it. Maybe you've accumulated it, and you're like, hey, I can go get this guy. I'm gonna do it. You should have been buying for the last 3 years, like me and Jay have been talking about, and just saying, hey, go get this kid because he's special. But I understand kind of there. The thing is, if you think that JSN and Ja'Marr are pretty equal, same tier, and you get a second, and you have Ja'Marr, and you're like, hey, I think JSN's right there. He's ascending. He's 23. I get it. I understand it too. I get that deal as well. The one that's crazy is the first one in Superflex, because if Jayden, I know Jayden had a rough year this year, and I know that offense hasn't looked bad, but if you get Jayden Daniels as a top 5 QB asset plus a 27 first, you do it on that's guaranteed as a rebuilding team, and it's something that's a great deal. I mean, on both sides, I get it. If you go win your league for JSN, great, go get it, get that championship. But it is awesome to see him rise up this far, right? I think that is something great to see in terms of, especially for a guy that we've been harping on for a while. All right, let's talk about a faller. We could have done a lot of guys in this range. Some of the wide receivers have definitely kind of fallen off the map. Xavier Worthy, for example. But I did want to point out, like, Matthew Golden's been bad, Jay. He is just, and I know a lot of it has to do with that offense too. He's a rookie, so I don't want to just harp on this too much. But Matthew Golden has not lived up to expectations, and his expectations in September were pretty damn high. I mean, for us, he's wide receiver 30, but on Keep Trade Cut, he's wide receiver 36. He was probably a wide receiver 18-ish range in that range in terms of where he was at in the offseason. He was really high before the season started. And when you're looking at what he has done so far this year, 32 targets, 24 receptions, 286 yards, no touchdowns. Just not look good, right? And now everybody's kind of coming back. They lost Tucker Kraft, RIP my guy. I love that guy. But, even then, hasn't been able to earn a lot of targets. Hasn't been out there, missed the Philly game. I mean, his best finisher is a wide receiver 18. Excuse me. That was in standard. Let me check. Wide receiver 22 in PPR makes it even worse. So his best finish in PPR is 22, and that's one time. Outside of that, he's basically a cannot play asset. Are you worried about Golden?
Yes, very worried.
Yeah. Okay.
From first round pick to like maybe even not even playable, it's gonna have to be a big turnaround and a big adjustment for next season for you to get the value that you probably used out of him to acquire him. So like, it's disappointing. There's been fallers this year. You mentioned a few of them, but Brian Thomas Jr., AJ Brown, like, there's definitely been some guys that we thought were going to be good, that had all the makings to be good. But Matthew Golden, the element that you also add to that was he was young too, and he was a first round pick. So you had all the hype along with him. And I think like you said, I think he was up to wide receiver 22-ish at the start of the season. So there was definitely a ton of hype for him coming in. So yeah, definitely a fall. I'm worried about him. I am concerned. I think next year is kind of going to have to be that prove it year for him, for you to get what you thought you might get out of him. But yeah, so far there's not really even much to point to in terms of like, maybe this might tick up, or maybe this looks a little bit better. I mean, so far a 12% target share, a 1.39 yards per route run. So it's just not really panned out for anything. And then you mentioned his fantasy finishes, but that's what we're playing this game for, the fantasy finishes, and he's definitely not usable. So, you've been having him on your bench this year. You haven't been able to put him in your starting lineup in most leagues. Maybe you even put him on his taxi squad, so he doesn't even take a bench spot. But certainly that's not where we were when we were at the beginning of the season, when we were drafting him, where we thought it would end up. We thought, finally the Packers spent capital on a wide receiver, and this is going to be their guy. They're going to put a lot of emphasis on him. This is going to be great. 20% target share, maybe wide receiver 2 range ish. And that's definitely not what happened.
Yeah, it's rough. I mean, when you look at his value too, he's going for seconds. Would you re-roll for a second?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't ever want to say I'm out on somebody this early, because I always feel like we should give these guys chances to get some time in the offense, build chemistry with the quarterback. But I need to see something next year. And if I don't, I'll probably be out.
Yeah, and if you feel like, hey, I'm out now, re-rolling for a second, next year's class is not terrible. It's got some depth in that spot. I get it. I know he's probably going for, gosh, where was he going at rookie drafts? First or late first?
I think so.
Yeah, late first-ish. So yeah, you're going to take a value hit a little bit. You get out early though. It's not the Keon Coleman life or whatever the case may be. He's going for Matthew Golden for Devontae Adams. So win now piece, go get him. Matthew Golden for Jaylen Warren. I'd rather have Matthew Golden, I think. I don't really want Jaylen Warren at all. But for Matthew Golden for Devontae, I understand it on the Devontae side. Go get a guy that's just been getting red zone touches and red zone targets, and you just go try to win it.
Yeah, I agree with all those.
All right. Anything on the wide receiver? Actually, I had a question for you. If you had to pick, who do you think is going to be higher? Let's say they're healthy. So we're just going to do this, Madden injuries off. We know they're going to be healthy. At the end of next year, Emeka or Tet McMillan?
I'm going to go Tet McMillan.
Okay.
I really liked Emeka. Emeka's our guy. I do think that the situation is improving for both of these players.
Mm-hmm.
Baker Mayfield's kind of proved the last few years that he can support a high end wide receiver, and Emeka certainly seems to be that that way. But I was so high on Tetairoa McMillan this offseason. I think could be one of those guys that gets into that mix of the very top end of wide receivers. Yeah. So I think from a prospect perspective, I liked Tetairoa McMillan better than Emeka. Not to say that I wasn't very high on Emeka. That's just the way it played out. And then I think maybe what's going on in Carolina might be transferring, and Bryce Young looks like he's on a little bit of an upswing and an uptrend, and hasn't looked great at all times this season. But I do think that Bryce Young has started developing that connection with Tetairoa McMillan, and I think that could be special. Now, clearly Emeka Egbuka has, if you take a look at the first part of the season, kind of outperformed, but at least today's game, and I think what you can see for the rest of the season, I think it's not that Tet can't put up the similar numbers that Emeka Egbuka has put up. So I think that you got to keep that in context, that Tetairoa McMillan is certainly capable to put up the numbers that we've been seeing from Emeka Egbuka as well. And I feel like he owns that room more so than, well, I guess we don't know what the Bucks situation is going to be next year. I mean, suppose Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are gone, and it's all Emeka Egbuka. In that situation, maybe it's Emeka Egbuka. But for me, I'm picking Tetairoa McMillan. I like him a little bit better as a prospect.
I figure that's interesting. I think they're both going to be top 8 wide receivers next year. I think that Emeka's already there. Emeka's 8 in our rankings. I'm on the low end at 12. You're in the middle at 8, and Christian's at 6. For Tet, though, I mean, you and me are right, but lockstep 12 and 13. So I just think it's an interesting conversation because he's risen up, or she rises up there too. He rose up after his offseason stuff, and he got suspended. But I think some of these young guys, it's cool to see kind of the churning of these. Obviously, Matthew Gold notwithstanding. Obviously, he's not churning up there. He's churning down. But there are some guys up there in terms of that range too. All right, let's get into oh, go ahead.
Dynasty-wise, right now, if you're out on the trade market, Emeka's value is so much higher than Tetairoa McMillan that you can get Tet plus more for Emeka. So that would be my choice for sure.
Go do that deal. Go. I want to see it. I want to see you make the deal. Get a little skin in the game there. Go see if you have it. All right, let's go over the tight end position. We'll be quicker on these. Tight end position. Whew, it's been a thing. But I will say one thing. When you're looking at a guy that's risen up, Oronde Gadsden, right? We mentioned, hey, he's an athletic dude. We'll see kind of what that looks like when it comes into what he's playing at. And he's looked really good this year. In PPR, 49 targets this year, 37 catches, 507 yards and 2 touchdowns, has put up 2 top 3 weeks this year. In terms of that, obviously kind of been injured, got a little banged up, but is healthy. So he saw consistent targets, right? Since week 6, he has not seen less than 5 targets. So, and he's done really well with those targets. He's been efficient. He's tight end 9 for us, but in Keep Trade Cut, he's already up to tight end 6. So he's rising up there in terms of value out there. And Jay was really concerned about some of these deals, but Oronde Gadsden for JCM and a 28 first. He doesn't want to get into 28 first yet, but they're getting traded out there. Oronde Gadsden for Cam Scatabo straight up. And Oronde Gadsden for Garrett Wilson straight up. So that's kind of where his market is. When you think of it, kind of crazy to think of where he was at. I think he was tight end 45, 46 beginning of the season. So where are you at with this prospect?
I mean, I like Gadsden. I think that this is somebody that could put up a lot of points. I think I like it. He's paired with Justin Herbert. I think Justin Herbert's having a great season, and I think that'll continue into the future. He's younger. He's certainly got the potential to be a fantasy difference maker. He's put up some really, really good weeks. So, as far as the hype though, from he's definitely been one of the guys this season where you've picked him off waiver wires and he's helped you win. And so in those situations, you get these situations where there's just so much hype, there's so much euphoria in a player that maybe it kind of gets a little out of whack. And to me, Garrett Wilson for him is a little out of whack. I mean, I'd so much rather have Garrett Wilson from a long-term perspective. But I do understand the positional values there. Gadsden might get you more of the top 12 finishes than Garrett Wilson would definitely this season. And so you kind of are waiting for a situational change on the Garrett Wilson side. But yeah, this is a huge riser. Lots of euphoria here behind him. I don't necessarily dislike. I think this could be a really good situation. I think there's some sticking power here, even with him not getting the draft capital that you'd like to see. I really do think that there's sticking power here in him staying up. Sometimes you see these guys like jump off, and the euphoria gets out of hand and they bump up into the top 12 of the position, but you can kind of tell like this probably won't last. This won't work. Bill might be one of those situations, but I think this is one that probably sticks because I think that he's just got that upside. There's lots of from a fundamental perspective, target share wise. Yards per route run, he's been pretty efficient there. I think he's above 2. He's I think 6 from a tight end perspective. So I think this guy, there's definitely some sticking power, something I like. Yes, it's been a rise. Yes, there's some euphoria. I don't want to get too crazy and be buying crazy on this stuff. But, if you're one of the guys that picked him up, I think it's well-deserved, and I do think there's some sticking power.
Yeah, no, I think that there's sticking power. I think at the position it matters, right? I think that tight ends like this, if I understand why he's up in the top 10 range in terms of our rankings, he's pushing top 5 in some. There's been a lot of trades right now for Aranda straight up for Sam Laporta, who's out for 4 weeks. There's a lot of deals out there, or Tucker Kraft, right? Straight up because Tucker's out. So and that's, imagine before the season, you would say that you could get Tucker Kraft for Sam or for Aranda Gadsden, right? Everybody what are you talking about? But that's how fast it changes at this position. This position is tough because outside the top 6 guys or 7 guys, how many of them are running weeks, right? So you got Brock, Trey, Tyler Warren, Laporta, Kraft, obviously injured, Loveland, Kittle, Gadsden, and then you guys getting into Jake Ferguson, Kyle Pitts, Fannin, yeah, all right, but these are elite guys that maybe can make a difference there. I think that's where you get into it with Gadsden there in that range. Now, as far as a faller, I added him. I'm going to get a little hate pushback. It's Sam Laporta. Now, the only reason why I put him on this list is obviously I know he's injured 4 weeks. That happened there. I just don't know if his play up until this year was really justifying, where some had him as tight end 1 coming into the year, right? Some had him as their dynasty tight end 1 or tight end 2 right there with Brock. And he's basically, before his injury, he's only averaging about 9.7 fantasy points per game. I could get that from a lot of guys at the tight end position, Jay. 9.7 fantasy points per game isn't a lot. Now, when you're looking at it, he has some spike weeks, and I know that he's still Sam Laporta at times. When you're looking at kind of what he's been able to do from a receiving standpoint, a lot of these guys are touchdown dependent. So against Minnesota, he got a touchdown. And then against Cincy and Kansas City, he had that touchdown. He's a tight end 1. But I will say their offense has been a little different without Johnson being there. I think obviously Campbell taking over play calling duties got him more involved. Then he got injured. But he has dropped a little bit, right? So I just wanted to add him to this list. He is no longer in that range, I don't think, of that tier 1. And I think that there's guys like Loveland, there's guys like Aranda who might be able to leapfrog him a little bit, depending on what. I think Tucker Kraft did leapfrog him until the injury. I think Tyler Warren's already ahead of him. I think Trey McBride's already ahead of him. So going from that elite tier with Brock down is why I put him on the list.
Yeah, I think it's just underperforming expectations. I think Brock Bowers, Trey McBride were probably tier 1. I think Laporta was probably right up there as the third one, and people were most excited about. And then you have maybe the rookies were probably next. Were probably Tyler Ward and Colston Loveland. And so from that perspective, if you're looking at it, he's not been performing what you would hope for this season. And so it has been a little bit of a fall for him. And the fact that Aranda Gadsden is basically at the same value or price for him right now is kind of like unbelievable if you would have thought about that from the first thing. You know, going back to Aranda Gadsden, if I could, I would trade Gadsden for Loveland. I don't know if that's a hot take or not. I know that that's the Gadsden's been the huge riser, and Loveland maybe has had a recent 1 or 2 games that have been okay. But if I'm making that trade all day, every day, if I can get Loveland for Gadsden. The same thing probably for Laporta as well. If I can take Laporta and turn him into Colston Loveland, that's the guy I really want to take the bet on. I think he's had a huge move the last, I think it was 2 weeks ago, but you know, that's the guy that I think is the tremendous prospect that could vault himself into that Trey McBride, Brock Bowers area if things continue getting better. But as I look through these trades, you know, like, sure, if I'm a contender, maybe I want George Kittle, of course. He can put up a lot of points, and he can have a differentiated points at the tight end position to help you win. Ferguson in a third, I'd probably take that side as well. Jake Ferguson, don't sleep on him. I know he's almost 27 years old, but he's having a pretty good season. Quietly good, but pretty good season. And you get the third. I think Jake is sort of underrated, and I think you know, he could be good again next year as well. And then I'm taking T. Higgins, positional value. I've always been a T. Higgins believer. I think he could be. I think he's still really good, and young enough to matter for the next few years as well. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't mind it. I think, you know, when you look at Laporta right now, if I can pivot off of him for a Loveland, that's not a bad call. I like the idea of having Loveland on my roster. And I think that he's going to be very, very involved in this offense down the stretch of the Bears offense. But next year, I think he's going to be their number 2 target guy. Him and Rome. I really think that. So if that's the case, then if you believe that, then you want to get him on your roster now. So I don't think that's a crazy call. I just love hearing Ohio State fan pan for a Michigan guy. That's kind of where I like it there. All right. That is our show. That's our ranking show there. Any final thoughts on these rankings as we kind of go over it, or anything that you have as we get down the stretch before I plug our Dynasty guide?
Oh yeah, my comment would be we just at the TDR, the three of us, we went through and ranked. What we do is combine rankings, so we do Dynasty and Devy all in one. It kind of breaks everything out. It's really cool product, something I don't see from a lot of places. And it's even got a trade calculator, so you can do Dynasty Devy trades along the way. But it's something that's really cool, really differentiated, ranking a ton of players all in one sheet. And you can break it out by, you know, who does the rankings, but it's a really cool product. We just did an update a couple weeks ago, so you know, these are fun. That's why we're doing this show. Things do move around quickly, but you know, it's a really fun process and a really cool product that we offer at the TDR.
Yeah, and we like doing it. It's a lot of work though. And with that being said, we are going to roll out a Dynasty guide next week. We are doing an in-season Dynasty guide. I don't think no one does that because they're not stupid enough to do that. But we are here at TDR. We like giving you guys a little different content. So over on our Patreon, we'll be dropping the guide. It's a lot of fun. It's going to have a ton of content in there in terms of whether you're contending, whether you're rebuilding, what you should be looking at in terms of classes. We're going to be reviewing kind of the rookie class, who we believe in, who we don't. It's a lot of fun. So go join our Patreon so you get access to that. That'll be dropping next week. We're really excited for that. But as always, we appreciate you guys tuning in. If you're on the podcast, thank you guys so much. We'll see you guys on the next episode.